The human joke that shook the throne. The grand hall of Queen Zarzena's palace was full of aliens from every corner of the galaxy. Tall warriors, wise elders, and noble families sat on floating seats, all staring at the stage where a single human stood alone. Jack, a soldier from Earth, stood tall even though he looked small next to the giant alien guards. His arms were tied behind his back, and his clothes were torn from battle. Dirt and blood marked his face, but his eyes still had fire. Queen Zarzena, ruler of the Crevari Empire, was sitting on her golden throne. She was over 8 feet tall, powerful and terrifying, with glowing violet eyes and armor that looked like it was alive. Her long black hair flowed like a river of shadows, and her voice echoed through the hall like thunder. "So this is the human," she said, her voice calm but sharp. "This tiny creature who dared fight my army?" The crowd laughed. Jack didn't move. He kept looking straight at the queen, not afraid. He had already seen too much pain to be scared now. Zarzena stood and walked toward him. The room went silent. Her tall frame towered over him as she spoke again. "They say humans are clever, that they can survive anything. Tell me, Earthman, why should I not crush you right now?" Jack gave a small smile. "Because I'm far too charming to kill." The silence was broken by sudden laughter from the guards, from the crowd, even from the queen herself. No one expected that answer. Zarzena narrowed her eyes, amused. "You are bold," she said. "Tell me, what do you think of Crevari women?" Jack raised an eyebrow. "You mean the ones who are tall, scary, and could probably snap me in half?" Another round of laughter. "I think they're beautiful," Jack continued, smiling, "but I don't think one would ever want to breed with a human like me." The word breed made several nobles gasp. A few spat in disgust. Zarzena's eyes glowed slightly brighter. "You dare speak of royal breeding so lightly?" she asked, though her tone wasn't angry, it was curious. Jack shrugged. "Well, if I ever had the chance, I'd make sure she enjoyed it." The room went silent again, but this time it was cold. Then came the queen's laugh, deep, loud, like thunder rolling across the stars. "You amuse me, little human. But I accept your challenge." Jack blinked. "Wait, what? You wish to breed with royalty? Survive the Trial of Thorns first," she said. "If you live, maybe you are more than just bones and jokes." The guards grabbed Jack and dragged him away. The nobles began whispering, many thought he would die in the first hour, others bet coins on how long he would last. No one believed a human could survive the trial. It was meant for monsters, not men. As he was pulled away, Jack looked back at the queen one last time. He saw a small smirk on her lips and something else in her eyes, interest. Outside the palace, the twin moons shined over the arena where Jack would be sent. It was a place of death, no weapons, no help, just the human and the wild. Jack took a deep breath as they dropped him into the pit. "Well," he muttered, "that joke really got out of hand." High above, in her private chamber, Zarzena stood by her window, looking down at the trial grounds. She had seen many creatures beg for life in that arena, but this human was different. He didn't beg. He didn't kneel. And he made her laugh. Trials of the human flesh. The jungle moon was silent, but it was the kind of silence that came before something deadly moved. Jack landed hard on the rocky ground, rolling once before stopping near a patch of glowing blue grass. Above him, the sky was a deep purple, and 2 alien moons floated side by side like watching eyes. The dropship that threw him here vanished into the clouds, leaving only dust and cold wind. No weapons, no supplies, only his mind, his body, and the hunger of the wild. He stood up slowly, body aching from the fall. His arm was bruised, one rib might have been cracked. He looked around, tall trees with black bark, giant vines twisting like snakes. Strange sounds echoed in the distance, growls, clicks, and the low rumble of something big hunting. Jack grinned to himself. "This place is just begging to kill me," he muttered. "Let's see if it can." Hours passed. In the surveillance chamber, Queen Zarzena stood before a massive hollow screen, arms crossed. Her counsel begged her to return to court duties, but she waved them away. She wanted to see this for herself. Most aliens thrown into the Trial of Thorns lasted 10 minutes. Some lasted an hour. Jack had survived 6, no powers, no exosuit, just wit. She watched as Jack carefully avoided a nest of 6-legged lizard beasts. He covered his scent with crushed blue fruit. He climbed a sharp cliff with his bare hands to escape a venom-spitting crawler. His movements were slow but always smart. He used mud to cover his body, hid in trees, made a spear out of bone and metal shards. One of her guards whispered, "He learns." Zarzena nodded without speaking, her violet eyes locked on the screen. Back on the moon, Jack was bleeding. A creature had bitten his leg during the night, its teeth like glass. He had managed to stab it with a sharp stick, but the wound was deep. He tore a strip from his shirt and wrapped it tight around his thigh. "Come on, Jack," he whispered to himself. "You've survived worse." The memory of Earth's last stand flashed in his mind, the Crevari ships darkening the sky, billions dead. He had been a soldier then, fighting a losing battle. Now he was just trying to stay alive. On the third day, something changed. The creatures stopped attacking. They watched him from the shadows, but they didn't charge. Jack sensed their fear but couldn't understand why. Until he saw the tracks, massive, deeper than his hand, with claw marks that could tear through metal. Something was hunting him. Something bigger than anything he'd faced. In the palace, Zarzena's eyes widened slightly. "The Morvash is awake," she said, her voice low. "My queen," her advisor said nervously, "no one has survived a Morvash hunt in centuries." "Then this will be interesting," she replied, leaning forward. Jack felt the ground shake before he heard it, a slow, rhythmic thud like a giant heartbeat. He scrambled up a tree just as the beast crashed through the undergrowth, 12 feet tall, with skin like black stone, 6 limbs ending in claws sharp as swords, and jaws that could crush a tank. The Morvash sniffed the air, searching. Jack held his breath. In the surveillance room, no one spoke. The queen's fingers dug into her armrest. The monster circled the tree, growling. Jack looked around desperately. There was no escape, no hiding. Only one option remained. He jumped. Not away from the beast, but onto it. His makeshift spear plunged deep into the creature's eye. The Morvash roared, thrashing wildly. Jack held on, driving the spear deeper, twisting it. Blood sprayed across his face, hot and acidic. The creature collapsed with a final, earth-shaking thud. Jack rolled off, gasping, covered in alien blood. In the palace, silence reigned. Then Zarzena did something that shocked her court. She smiled. The queen's challenge. 7 days had passed. 7 days of survival, hunting, and being hunted. Jack had built a shelter in the hollow of a massive tree. He had crafted weapons from the bones of the Morvash. He had found water in the cups of glowing flowers. And every night, he felt eyes watching him, not the creatures of the jungle, but the surveillance drones that hovered silently above the canopy. "Enjoying the show, Your Majesty," he called out one night, staring directly at a drone. He gave a mock bow, then continued skinning his dinner, a 6-legged reptile that tasted like spicy chicken. In her private chambers, Queen Zarzena laughed. The human knew he was being watched, and he performed for her anyway. Bold. Defiant. Different from any creature she had ever encountered. "Bring him back," she ordered suddenly. Her advisors exchanged nervous glances. "My queen, the trial is meant to last 14 days, one said cautiously. "I said bring him back," she repeated, her voice leaving no room for argument. "He has proven himself." The next morning, Jack woke to the sound of engines. A dropship descended through the trees, sending creatures scattering in all directions. He stood, leaning on his Morvash bone spear, watching as the ship landed and the door opened. 2 Crevari guards stepped out, their weapons lowered. "The Queen commands your presence," one said. Jack raised an eyebrow. "Does she now? And if I refuse?" The guards exchanged confused looks. No one had ever refused a royal summons. Jack laughed. "Relax, I'm coming. Just wanted to see your faces." He picked up his makeshift pack and walked toward the ship. "Tell Her Majesty I expect a bath and a decent meal for my troubles." The Grand Hall was packed even tighter than before. News of the human who survived the Morvash had spread throughout the Empire. Nobles from distant worlds had arrived to see this curiosity for themselves. Jack walked in, escorted by guards but no longer bound. He was clean, his wounds treated, wearing a simple black suit that had been provided for him, though it was slightly too large for his human frame. Queen Zarzena sat on her throne, watching him approach. Her violet eyes seemed to glow brighter than before. "The human returns," she announced, her voice carrying through the hall. "Alive. Victorious over the Morvash." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some spoke in awe, others in disbelief. "Tell me, human," Zarzena said, "how did you succeed where so many stronger beings have failed?" Jack shrugged. "You don't need to be the strongest to survive. You just need to be smarter than whatever's trying to kill you." "And are you smarter than me?" the Queen asked, leaning forward slightly. The hall fell silent. Such a question from the Queen to a prisoner was unprecedented. Jack met her gaze. "I wouldn't presume to say, Your Majesty. But I'd enjoy finding out." A collective gasp swept through the crowd. The human was flirting with the Queen, openly, brazenly. Zarzena's lips curved into a smile. "You survived the Trial of Thorns. According to our ancient laws, that earns you a place in my court." "As what?" Jack asked. "Court jester." "As my challenge," she replied. "Our species have never successfully mated. Many believe it impossible due to our different biologies. Yet you stand before me, claiming you could please a Crevari female." Jack's eyes widened slightly as he realized where this was going. "I propose a different trial," Zarzena continued, rising from her throne. "One of pleasure rather than pain. Succeed, and you will earn a position few can imagine. Fail." She shrugged. "And at least you will die happy." The hall erupted in shocked whispers. The Queen's advisor stepped forward, his face pale. "My Queen, this is unprecedented. A human in the royal bedchamber." "Silence," Zarzena commanded without raising her voice. "I am Queen. My word is law." She turned back to Jack. "What say you, human? Do you accept this challenge?" Jack looked around at the stunned faces of the aliens, then back at the towering, powerful figure of the Queen. He bowed, a playful smile on his lips. "I live to serve, Your Majesty." Whispers of the Empire. 3 months had passed since Jack's challenge with the Queen. The palace was alive with rumors. Guards whispered about strange sounds from the royal chambers. Servants spoke of the Queen's changed demeanor, softer, sometimes smiling for no reason. The human was seen coming and going from her private quarters at all hours, no longer a prisoner but not quite a consort either. "He still lives," nobles would murmur in disbelief when Jack walked through the palace gardens or studied in the great library. Jack had learned much about the Crevari in his time at court. Their rigid hierarchy, their warrior culture, their respect for strength above all else. And he had learned about Zarzena, not just as a queen, but as a woman. Behind closed doors, she showed him sides of herself no other creature had seen. "Your people fought bravely," she told him one night as they lay together, her massive frame curled around his smaller one. "I respected Earth's resistance, even as I ordered the attacks. Is that supposed to make me feel better?" Jack asked, his voice tight. "No," she replied honestly. "But understanding between us must begin with truth, however painful." Jack turned to face her, looking into those violet eyes that had once terrified him. "The truth is I should hate you. But I don't. And that scares me more than your entire army ever did." She traced a finger along his jaw. "Fear is the beginning of wisdom, human." Their unlikely relationship might have continued in secrecy, but fate had other plans. The royal physician entered the queen's chambers one morning, summoned to attend to what Zarzena described as a persistent discomfort. After examining her, the physician's green skin paled to almost white. "Impossible," he whispered. "My queen, you are, with child." Zarzena's eyes widened. "Explain." "The embryo shows mixed genetic markers. Human and Crevari." The physician's hands trembled. "It should be impossible. Our species are too different." "Apparently not," Zarzena said, placing a hand on her abdomen. When Jack was told, he sat down hard, staring at the wall in shock. "I'm going to be a father. To a half-alien royal baby." He laughed suddenly. "My mother always did say I'd end up somewhere unexpected." News spread through the palace like wildfire, then through the capital, then across the empire. The queen, carrying a human hybrid child. Some called it an abomination. Others, a miracle. Religious sects declared it a sign from the gods. Military factions saw it as contamination of the royal bloodline. In the council chamber, voices were raised in anger. "The child cannot be allowed to live," shouted General Vorn, pounding his fist on the table. "It will weaken our species, dilute our strength." "The child is royal by blood," countered Minister Tila, one of the few who had come to respect Jack. "To harm it would be treason." Zarzena sat silently, listening to her advisors argue about her unborn child. Jack stood behind her chair, his face tense but determined. Finally, the queen raised her hand, and silence fell immediately. "The child will live," she declared. "It will be my heir. Any who challenge this will answer to me personally." Her eyes glowed with dangerous intensity. "And to the child's father." All eyes turned to Jack. Once a prisoner, now potentially the father of the future ruler. General Vorn sneered. "This human. He is nothing but a—" "The human who killed a Morvash with a stick," Jack interrupted. "The human who survived when your warriors couldn't. The human who won your queen's favor." He stepped forward. "I may be small by your standards, General, but I've proven one thing beyond doubt: humans don't die easily." The room fell silent. Then Minister Tila began to laugh. "Well said, human." She turned to the others. "Perhaps this is exactly what our empire needs: new blood, new thinking." But not everyone agreed. As Jack and Zarzena left the council chamber, a message was already being sent to the furthest corners of the empire: the royal bloodline has been compromised. The time for change has come. A new dawn. The attack came at dawn. 6 warships, bearing the marks of House Vorn, descended upon the royal palace. Their weapons charged, they hovered above the capital city like dark storms. "Surrender the human and terminate the abomination," General Vorn's voice boomed across all communication channels. "Or we will reduce the palace to ash." In the royal chambers, Jack helped Zarzena into her battle armor, a difficult task given her 7-month pregnant form. "You should hide," she told him, wincing as she fastened the modified chest plate. "This is my battle." Jack checked the energy weapon he'd been given, small by Crevari standards but devastating in human hands. "Our child, our battle," he corrected. "Besides, I didn't survive Earth's fall and a jungle moon just to hide under a bed." They shared a brief smile before the palace shook with the first bombardment. The royal guard was divided, some remained loyal to the queen, others defected to Vorn's rebellion. Corridor by corridor, the palace became a battlefield. Jack fought alongside Zarzena, his smaller size allowing him to slip through spaces too narrow for Crevari. Where she brought crushing force, he brought precision and speed. Together, they pushed toward the central command center. "Your human fighting style is unusual," she commented as Jack slid beneath an enemy soldier and fired upward. "We call it whatever works," he replied, rolling back to his feet. In the command center, they found Minister Tila coordinating the defense. Her arm was wounded, but her resolve was unbroken. "The Loyalist fleet is responding," she reported, "but they won't arrive for hours. Vorn's ships are targeting our shield generators." Another explosion rocked the palace. Dust fell from the ceiling. "We need to buy time," Zarzena said, her hand protectively over her swollen abdomen. Jack looked at the tactical display, studying the rebel ships' positions. Then he smiled, the same smile he had given the Queen when he first stood before her throne. "I have an idea. But you're not going to like it." 30 minutes later, a small transport vessel shot out from the palace hangar. It weaved between energy blasts, flying directly toward Vorn's flagship. "The human is attempting to escape." Vorn bellowed. "All weapons, target that ship." The transport took multiple hits but kept going, smoke trailing behind it. It crashed into the flagship's hangar in a spectacular explosion. On the flagship's bridge, General Vorn laughed. "So dies Earth's last hope." "Actually," came a voice behind him, "Earth's last hope is right here." Vorn spun around to find Jack standing there, bleeding from a cut on his forehead but very much alive. The transport had been a distraction. Jack had infiltrated the flagship hours earlier, using maintenance tunnels too small for Crevari. "You're alone, human," Vorn said, drawing his weapon. "One against many." Jack shrugged. "Story of my life." Then he pulled out a small device. "But I brought friends." He pressed the button. Throughout the flagship, explosives detonated, small charges placed at critical junctions. The ship lurched violently. "What have you done?" Vorn roared. "Introduced chaos," Jack replied. "Humans are good at that." The flagship began to lose altitude, systems failing. The other rebel ships, seeing their leader falter, hesitated. It was all the time the Loyalist fleet needed to arrive, weapons blazing. The rebellion collapsed within hours. In the aftermath, Jack stood with Zarzena on the palace balcony, overlooking the damaged city. Repair crews were already at work, and citizens gathered below, looking up at their queen and the human by her side. "They're waiting," Zarzena said quietly. "For you to speak." Jack looked at her in surprise. "Me? I'm not their king." "You are the father of their future ruler," she replied. "And the hero who saved their queen." She took his hand, hers so large it enveloped his completely. "Our people's histories are joined now, for better or worse." Jack stepped forward, looking out at the alien crowd. These were the same people whose armies had devastated Earth. The same species he had once sworn to fight until his last breath. Now, they looked to him not as an enemy, but as something else entirely. "I came to your world as a prisoner," he began, his voice carrying across the square. "I stand before you now as a father-to-be." A cheer went up from some in the crowd. Earth and Crevari were enemies. Many died on both sides, including those I loved. He paused, emotion threatening to overwhelm him. "But today, we have a chance for something new. Something neither of our worlds has seen before." He placed his hand on Zarzena's abdomen, feeling the slight movement within. "This child will be neither fully human nor fully Crevari. It will be something new. Just as our future together must be something new." Zarzena placed her hand over his. "A future of strength," she added, "but also understanding." The crowd was silent for a moment, then a chant began, slow at first, then building. Not a war cry, but something else. A name. A hope. 2 months later, In the same grand hall where Jack had once stood as a prisoner, a child was born, smaller than a Crevari infant but larger than a human baby. Its skin held the faint purple hue of its mother, but its eyes were startlingly human. The royal physicians proclaimed it healthy, strong, and unlike any creature ever seen in the galaxy. "A daughter," Zarzena whispered, holding the tiny being. "What shall we name her?" Jack looked at his child, the impossible hybrid, the living bridge between enemies, the first of her kind. "Terra," he said softly. "After the Earth name for my homeworld. A new Earth in a new time." Zarzena nodded. "Terra it is." She looked up at Jack. "The joke that started this, do you regret it?" Jack smiled, touching his daughter's tiny hand as it curled around his finger. "Not for a second." Outside the palace, the news spread throughout the stars: a new princess was born. A new era had begun. The end.